all I can say at this point is, welcome to the jungle. I've just opened this, this spaghetti up. It's not fun when it's like this. This is not fun. There's some good news, but ultimately even worse news. The words that went through my head at this very point was, oh, come on. Hey guys, I just wanted to let you know this is a direct result of what happens when a brand new carpet is put down and there is a lighting fault in the property down below. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm at a barber shop, which is a rented property, and the electrics have tripped out here, so I'm going to show you the fault finding solutions here, but also I'm going to be talking about some of the problems with this being a rented property and the fact that the barber shop, the owners have had some electrical work done, and the issues that it's creating now for the landlord because of what they've done. Right, so coming up to the mains here now, you can see here we've got a lovely dual RCD board. I can see a problem here straight away, and that is, there's nothing wrong with this setup. However, this RCD unit is controlling all of these circuits on this side. So we don't know which one of these circuits is causing the problem. With an RCBO consumer unit, which is what is always recommendable, we wouldn't have this problem. So what can actually happen here is that if these RCBO units basically mean that these RCDs are built into each one of these individually, which means that instead of this tripping and not knowing which one of these circuits is causing this to trip, if this is built into each of them individually, it means that if the socket circuit trips, then we know it will be the socket circuit because this will go down. This won't be here. It will be built into this device. It will trip this out, and then we know, okay, we got a socket fault, which then in turn means that it can mitigate the need of an electrician even being called out, because the tenant can then walk around the property, see what's plugged in, unplug all the devices and try and reset the trip. Once they've done that, they can then plug things in one by one, and then when something trips, that's normally a pretty good indication that it's just the appliance that is plugged in causing the problem. Whereas in this scenario, this RCD is tripped and we don't know which one of these it is. So yeah, there's a good chance you're going to need professional help to come and figure out this problem. So I would recommend straight away that this unit is replaced for an RCBO consumer unit. So that means that this RCD won't be here and neither will this one. So then each one of these circuits, any one that might trip, it will only be that circuit that trips. So at the moment, you've got a setup where if this trips, you're not going to know which one of these is causing it. And the same with this RCD. If this trips, you're not going to know which one of these circuits is causing the issue. But anyway, that's another scenario. So what I'm going to do now is open this up now and split these circuits down and figure out which one of these has got the fault. Right, so I've got the main switch off. I've turned all of these circuit breakers off. It's important these are off when I'm doing my testing, because otherwise, as I'm testing each circuit, if these circuit breakers are on, it'll back feed through all the other circuits as well and give me false readings. So they're all disconnected. I've taken out all the neutrals out of the neutral bar as well, so that they're all separated now. So that all the circuitry is all separate. Each one of these circuits are all separated in every way now. I've left all the earths in because they're not needed to be taken out. What's great about this is that, or not great, that is my sarcasm, is that to get a screwdriver in here, I do have the wood here. This is the door hinged from the top here, so which is currently resting and balancing on my head. And yeah, basically, it is not a good angle to get a screwdriver in. Something that always gets overlooked in these scenarios is it's all well and good fitting a consumer unit and then having a lovely wooden boxing built around it. But a couple of things to consider is, one, this needs to be sort of done in a way that this can be kept open for long periods of time if needed, which normally, well, in a nice scenario, it'd be nice if there was some sort of catch or something to hold this open, for one. But two, to position the consumer unit so that all of these terminals can be got to, so a screwdriver can be put in on a nice angle. So really, this consumer unit could have done with being lower. I do appreciate with these scenarios where you've got older equipment and things like that in place, it's tricky, but you want to look out for these things, because at the end of the day, it now involves me in a really awkward scenario trying to do this. It is not favourable conditions. However, as electricians, we will prevail. Something I want to highlight here as well is that I could when I came in here, I've just turned this RCD on, seen if it reset the power and gone, oh, everything's working now. But that is not the correct thing to do, because basically by turning on this RCD, it would energize all the circuits. And if there was a fault here, then potentially it can basically make matters worse by, if there was something shorting out, what it will end up happening is it will then go pop, it will trip the circuit out again, and basically you could end up blowing the fault apart. So now not only you've basically gotten rid of what potentially could be a short circuit problem and now create an open circuit problem. So you could end up blowing the earth path open and things like that. So you really got to be careful with this. And not only that, that is the difference between why we're electricians and, you know, why Joe Public, understandably, they're going to try and reset the trip. That's obviously what would happen in that scenario. But as electricians, we don't want to turn this on and potentially lose the original fault to then create a new one. So it's really important that we do our tests on the circuitry exactly as everything is, and then we can then look at testing every circuit individually, getting things back on that are okay, and we can dwindle it down to just the one circuit that's causing the problem. All right, so I'm going to do my insulation resistance readings now. And on my reader, I've got 500 megohms there. Great. 500 megohms. 500 meg. And then when we get to these first two circuits here, okay, that is the lighting circuit. I've got a very low reading of 0.01 meg there. That's pretty much a dead short on that one. And then doing earth to live on the sockets. I've got 9 meg. I've still got things plugged in. Like I said, I wanted everything to be exactly as it was, so I haven't unplugged anything yet, but already I'm getting a pretty good reading on the sockets without things being unplugged. So I'm only doing earth to live, so it's not going to cause any damage, any issues or anything like that. So what I'm going to do now is basically, I'm now going to unplug everything in here, in this place, and basically, yeah, that should basically make the socket reading go up. Already 10 megohms on the sockets is already a clear reading anyway, but I just want to see what I can get it up to. But it's looking pretty evident that the issue is on the lighting circuit. I've already done earth to neutrals and I've found exactly the same thing. So it's pretty much looking like the lighting circuit. It's important that when we're doing this, that we don't just turn the sockets off and think that they're disconnected from the circuit, because with a lot of these sockets, they're only single pole sockets. So that basically means that when you turn this switch off, it disconnects the live from the appliance. However, it doesn't disconnect the neutral. A lot of sockets nowadays are double pole, so it will disconnect the live and the neutral. So that's basically like them being completely disconnected from the circuit. However, unless you know, then what we do is we always just unplug them. That way they're completely separated from the actual main hard wiring of the circuit, the installation. You gotta love barbershops. They're always crammed full of so much stuff. So much stuff. This may take a little while. Right, so I've unplugged everything and our socket readings are still remaining at 7 meg, around about 6-7 meg. So yeah, I haven't managed to get the readings any higher with everything unplugged. So it's definitely nothing I'm getting a back reading through from one of the appliances. So whatever that 7 meg is, that is part of the socket installation more than likely, unless there's something that I'm not seeing that I don't know about. But nevertheless, 7 meg is still an acceptable reading. So I'm going to put my attention now onto the lighting circuit. Whatever's going on with the sockets, it's not the best reading. However, it's certainly not an issue at this point. Whatever is causing the problem, it's looking to me like I'm very confident now it's going to be on the lighting circuit. So I'm going to put my attentions there and see where we go. In a place like this, they got these lovely LED fancy lights, which wire. This is the hardwired part, which is where the cables go through the ceiling to this point and then feed the lights externally through these cables. So I'm hoping there's a switch here, there's one by the front door, and I think there's one by the back as well. With a bit of luck, they've wired the mains to the actual switches. So I'm going to open up the switches and see if I can break the circuits down there. If not, I will be starting off by having to break down the circuits through these light fittings. So it's a process of elimination here. I know I've got a bad reading on the lighting circuit, so what I want to do is try and break the circuit somewhere in the middle point, and then I'm going to then test the circuit back at the mains to see if the reading clears. If it doesn't, then I'll then test the circuit from the middle point going to the end of the circuit to try and, I'm trying to find out where the good half and bad half is, and then work my way back from that. So it's a process of keep breaking it down until I get to a point where I know it can only be, say, between this light fitting and this one, because the wiring from here going to the end of the building is fine, and the wiring at the beginning of the installation is good. This is just for hypothetically I'm talking right now, but yeah. So then if it was deemed it was a case that there's a problem from here to here, I know to put my attention in this area. Okay, so there's no mains here. We've just got a live and a switch live. So there's no neutral here. So that's probably telling me that there's not going to be any mains at the other light switches either. So it looks like the mains has been taken to the actual light fittings themselves. So I need to be opening these light fittings. Right, so I've just opened this, this spaghetti up. And the first thing that came to mind when I took it down was my honest thoughts. What the words that went through my head at this very point was, oh, come on. That's honestly what went through my head. So yeah, here we have got our cable here, which is feeding all of this. And we've got this little beauty, this transformer, which confused me for a moment. I was thinking, hold on a minute, are these lights mains, or are they low power, low powered, and they've got a driver on them? But it looks like this driver is actually, it goes into the ceiling, and it looks like it's feeding, from what I can tell. There's an LED low voltage strip here. So it looks to me that these strips behind these mirrors are fed from these units here. So yeah, so basically I need this cable that I found here is the cable that's feeding it. However, it's not the mains cable that I'm looking for. I'm looking for the cable where I can actually split the circuit into different sections. I know that this cable goes back to a junction point somewhere, which then splits off and feeds, one leg of it goes back to the consumer unit, and the other leg will be going through to this next section through here. So the only problem I've got a connection here, I've got another one here, another one here. Also, I've got these spotlights here. They're all fed from the same switch. So behind any one of these light fittings could be this mains connection, which I'm trying to track down. Could be behind here. So it's not fun when it's like this. This is not fun. However, we will get there. Nope, not this one. So I've taken some of the light fittings down, and all I can say at this point is welcome to the jungle. Because as you can see here, I've got light fittings down everywhere, and basically I have not found a mains connection at any of them. Basically what we've got here is the situation we have is basically this. With all these light fittings, it comes from the consumer unit, and somewhere the cable that comes directly from the consumer unit will go to a junction point, which it's looking like, because I can't find this connection point at any of these light fittings, it's looking like it's behind the ceiling somewhere. So when this place was renovated by the people that are currently renting it, the electrician that did it would have put a junction point, which then splits off. So one cable would go down to the switch, and then at that junction, it would connect to that junction point, and it would then split off and go to each of these lights, and the connection from the consumer unit would also go to this junction point. So everything comes to a central point somewhere. So I can't get to that central point to be able to split the circuit down. However, what I can do is it's tricky now, because I can't identify at this point whether it's one of these light fittings causing the issue easily and quickly, or whether it's to do with the actual wiring that goes from here to here and then out to there. So basically what I've got to do now is just disconnect each of these light fittings one by one, and seeing if the readings change. If I disconnect one of these light fittings off, which I can do from these junction points that are at each of these positions, if I disconnect them off one by one and then the readings suddenly change when I disconnect a certain one, then I know it's going to be one of these light fittings that's causing the issue. So what I am going to do first, I am going to now I've disturbed all of these connections. I haven't disconnected anything at this point. I've only dropped the fittings down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to now do another test from the mains to see, since disruption all of this, whether the reading changes at the consumer unit. Right. 0.01, so the reading has not changed. I didn't think it would, but it's always worth always worth checking just to see, because then you know that it's going to be something to do with one of these connections. But it's not changed anything, so yeah, I will now go on to disconnecting each one of these fittings off one by one and see what happens. Right, okay, so I've broken down the circuit on this side. There's some good news, but ultimately even worse news, and that is the following. Basically, I've opened up all these spotlight connections here, and I have found that this cable is the one that comes through from the front of the shop, and this cable here then goes around to each one of these spotlights and feeds through as a daisy chain. I've tested this part of the circuit here going round, and all of this is fine. So the problem is from this cable going back through the wall, and this is really where things get not good, because as I've said before, there is definitely a junction point up in the ceiling, at least one. There's going to be a couple or a few, and basically the only way to continue the search with where the problem is to get to the floor up above. And that's really where things get quite bad now, because this place, the landlord owns the building down here, but he also owns the property upstairs as well, which has been newly refurbished. So it is going to mean that we're going to need to lift up the floors and everything upstairs. So as far as I can go down here, I've exhausted everything. I've taken apart every single light fitting. I've found out that none of the lights down here are causing the actual problem, the actual fittings themselves. The issue we have is actually to do with the hard wiring, which is in the ceiling. And this is a very good example of why it's really important to avoid putting junction boxes in ceilings. It's not too bad having junction boxes in ceilings like this that you can get to for scenarios like this. It's the ones that are in the ceilings which cannot be got to. So they're up here somewhere. So the only way to really get to them now is to have to go upstairs. So in one way or another, the floor is going to need to come up to be able to get to break the circuit down further to figure out where the issue is. But ultimately, I know it's in this front section here, and there's no other way around it. There's no, even if I was to try and say, okay, we can't get to that wiring up above, we're going to need to rewire some of the circuit down here, it's going to mean either a couple of things. It's going to mean cutting out big sections of ceiling to get new cables across to feed, and I'm still going to have to find where the main is to be able to interconnect things together. It's either going to mean doing that, or it's going to mean trunking everywhere, which this place is in a really nice condition, so you wouldn't want to do that either. So that's the two options with that. So that's why we now have to go upstairs and continue, which is going to be another drama, basically. So the only good bit of news off the back of this is the fact that it has been refurbished upstairs, and it means that there isn't anybody in there yet. So that is the one bit of good news out of all of this. But with these installations, where you've got older wiring connecting onto the newer wiring would have been brought through, or should have been brought through, holes that have been drilled through the centre of the joists, like the ceiling timbers, or if you're upstairs, that's technically the floor timbers. If the cables are running through the middle of the joists, it's highly unlikely that any screws would have gone down and screwed into it. However, any joists that have the older wiring, they would have had notches taken out of the top side of the timbers, and that's where the older wiring would run through. So technically, those cables are only going to be potentially less than an inch underneath the surface of where the floorboards go down. So when these floors were screwed down, that's where the cable would have then gone through if somebody hasn't done their checks properly to make sure that there wasn't anything underneath. So unfortunately, it is going to need floors up and the search continues, or even if we don't continue the search, we still need to get to some key parts of the installation to be able to get new wiring across. So unfortunately, the video is going to end on that one, but the good news is we will figure out what the issue is, and it will get the lights back on eventually. So Please guys, as always, like and subscribe. It's always nice to hear from you as well, so please leave your comments, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. And thank you for watching. Hey guys, I just wanted to let you know this is a direct result of what happens when a brand new carpet is put down and there is a lighting fault in the property down below. This is a rented property up here with a barber shop beneath it. This morning this carpet it's had a brand new carpet down, ready for new tenants to move in, and now it looks like this. And this is a direct result of what happens when there's a lighting fault inside of a barber shop and the lighting connections are in connections above the ceiling that can't be got to. It basically means the floor up above it has to come up. Hence the reason why all of this looks like this and has to go back. What an absolute nightmare. This is just a little bit of information into when you're having anything done. If the electrician says he's going to put junction boxes under the floor, if there's any way it can be mitigated and not be done, then absolutely I would highly recommend that you try and find a way not to, because don't get me wrong, junction boxes are perfectly fine, and when they're done properly they can last for many, many years. The problem we've got in this property is that the problem wasn't the junction box. The problem was the fact that for me to be able to break the circuit down to be able to find where the problem is in the property down below, it meant that I needed to break the circuit into sections so that I could test certain parts of the wiring to be able to figure out if it's at the back or the front or the middle of the property. By these junction points, which were crucial for me to have to get to, because they were above the ceiling, it meant the only way to be able to solve the issue was basically to have to lift all this floor up. So that, unfortunately, it is what it is, but these things happen. And if your tradesman says to you, oh, you didn't get to my job, you were supposed to be here yesterday and you had to cancel on me, I wasn't very happy about it, then sometimes you might just want to give your tradesman a bit of a break, because scenarios like this, I was only going to come here for a couple of hours to try and find a fault lighting issue. I've been here all day and it's now 8 p.m. So, and that's just how it goes. But hope you enjoyed that, guys, and I hope that's been useful.